I'm just on my way home from work and been back to Starbucks to get the old fave, mocha frappuccino. You just can't beat it.
Oh my god, it's so chocolatey. Yum.
So I wanted to talk about weight targets in recovery because, to be honest, I have big beef with targets, mainly because I think they're more often than not set too low for a person. And a doctor looks at their BMI chart and goes, okay, here's a bell curve of normal. If you get down to this end, you're like just in the threshold of healthy, so we'll set you that as a target. But the chances of that being the right weight for your body, so it might be within the threshold of healthy, but if it's not your body's healthy point, then your body is not going to be happy there. And I do understand that targets might be needed, especially in the first place where you're just starting out in recovery and maybe you need something to aim for to get you going. And if I think about myself, would I have gained weight if I didn't have a target? Maybe not. So I guess it was good at the beginning and through the journey, having something to aim for. But if your target is lower than your body's natural weight, then once you hit it, it is anything but good. It's actually destructive. Because you're going to hit this weight that this doctor's told you is supposedly a healthy weight for you, and your body's going to be like, no, it's not. I'm not happy here. So it's going to keep you hungry, thinking about food, preoccupied with food, obsessive. Here's an example. The other day in the office, someone had cake and they mentioned it from the other side of the office, and I was like a freaking meerkat. I was like, who's got cake? Not that I was necessarily going to eat it. I was just so interested in the food that was going on in the office. There's such a hyper awareness of food. And that makes sense to me. From your body's point of view, if it's not at its healthy weight, it's going to be telling you to eat constantly because it's trying to pull you up to a healthy weight. So if it hears about food on the other side of the office, it's going to be like, cake? I want some cake. If anything, I found hitting targets almost get a renewed fear around food. So things which I challenged and had been easy during weight gain, once I hit my target, it's like that safety blanket of weight gain is gone. And because the doctor's told you you're healthy, you're then terrified of going over the weight that they've set. So you once again have this renewed fear of weight gain. And so maybe before you were going out to restaurants and eating burger, chips, getting dessert. But if you're at your target, you're then oh, now I can't eat these foods because I've hit my target and that was weight gain. So those were weight gain foods. I can't continue to eat those now. Which is bullshit. Food isn't recovery food. Food isn't a weight gain thing. It's a thing that you just eat in a normal diet. But if your body's not at its healthy weight, it's going to be wanting food, wanting food, wanting food. And so it's going to be trying its absolute best to get you to put on weight. And that's where I mean this thing about fighting your biology. You're going to spend your whole life restricting to hold your body below the weight it wants to be. If a doctor's telling you okay, you'll be healthy and recovered now, and you get to that weight and you're still hungry and still thinking about food, you're going to be like, well, what's wrong with me? But there's actually nothing wrong with you at all. You just had a target that was set too low. I gave an analogy in a previous video about your set range being like an elastic band. So your body's happy within this elastic band space. And if you take it above or below, then your body's going to be like, mm-mm. And it's going to do anything it can to ping you back to your set point. And that pinging is done through hunger, thinking about food, obsessions with food, noticing there's cake on the other side of the office. And so if you and a doctor are trying to keep your weight below where your body wants it to be, you're going to have to restrict to do it. But I'm sure there's some people who can survive on 4 or 5 hours sleep. That's going to be the low end of healthy. But just because that 1.3% of the population can survive on 4 or 5 hours sleep, obviously I'm making it up, doesn't mean I can. And I know I definitely can't. I'm a solid at least 8 hours a night kind of a sleeper. So if I go to a doctor and they say, okay, the low end of healthy is 4 or 5 hours of sleep, off you go, and I force myself to do that, I am going to be freaking exhausted. Because again, my elastic band is trying to pull me back to my set point of sleep. In the same way that if I hold my weight down at the low end of healthy and I'm not supposed to be there, it's going to be messaging me I want to gain some more weight, please go and eat, and it's just going to make me obsessed with food. There are so many people looking at me. if you're really lucky, then you'll have a doctor who like recognizes this, and the target that they've set you initially will just be that, an initial target to like kickstart the process and give you something to aim for. And then when you get there, they'll tell you, okay, now you need to keep going, you need to keep gaining until you're at your body's happy place. Which I am lucky, like that is what my team are telling me at the moment. But it is still quite difficult. Like as soon as you've got a target in place, it's still something you then need to like break past. And also like this BMI 19 is just thrown about friggin' everywhere. Like I hate that there's this like gold standard of recovery that everyone should apparently adhere to, and generally it's too low for everyone. And it can also be made harder by thinking like, oh, well, I'm at the low end of healthy now, like this is perfect. This is kind of like what I set out to do before I lost control and took it too far. And maybe you're even getting compliments from people like, oh my God, you're so skinny, you look amazing. What's your secret? And you're like, just destroy your life. That's not really funny. But seriously, you can get that idea of like, oh, this is perfect. Like I'm still slim, I'll just hold myself here. But I really don't think that is the case. Like 3 things can basically happen from this point. Like 1, if you're still holding on to like rules and restrictions, which you're probably going to have to hold your weight at BMI 19, then anorexia has still got its foot in the door. And what's to say your restrictions today aren't going to be a bit more tomorrow, and then a bit more, or like even a year down the line, like things will gradually start creeping back in. Like maybe I can today allow myself full fat mayonnaise, but if someone happens to buy low fat mayonnaise, once we've run out of that, am I then going to allow myself to go back up to full fat, or am I going to think, oh no, I can't have more than that? It's very easy for your restrictions to just gradually get more and more and more, and then your life's getting less and less and less again. And then before you know it, you're back to a really tiny weeny restricted life. Or 2, you could end up developing a different form of eating disorder, which does happen. Or like 3, let's say you do manage to maintain a BMI 19 for the rest of your life. Like, congratulations, you've still got a thigh gap, you're still skinny, but like not really, because you're still giving up a lot of your life to hold yourself there, and you're still living within an eating disorder bubble. I basically see it as you're like on an eternal diet. Like for the rest of your life, you're going to have to diet to hold your weight below where it wants to be. And I imagine physically, like your health's probably not going to be improving to all that it could be. Like I can't imagine holding a BMI is going to make my bones any better. So yeah, it's really scary pushing past a doctor imposed BMI target. And like for me, I don't actually even get scared that I'm going to get fat. I'm more just scared of being normal. I'm scared of like losing a thigh gap because it's your little buzz that you hold on to, or I kind of want to hold on to a couple of little restrictions here and there because it's like makes me feel better sometimes. Like, well, I think it's good for my anxiety. It's not, but yeah, it's kind of like you want to hold on to a couple of little safety blankets of like, I don't know, for a rainy day, but you can't just be a little bit eating disordered. Like you are either free of it or you have it. And I really don't mean to make this sound like preachy, because, well, to be honest, like this is something I'm struggling with myself at the moment. But I don't know, maybe it's easier for me to say. Like I feel like you can always see these things so much better in someone else, but then you just think different rules apply to you. But yeah, my psychologist is trying to help me with it right now to like push past like ceilings on recovery and like self-imposed barriers, or even professionally imposed barriers, like depending on what your care team are advising. So one thing my psychologist has got me to do is write out a pros and cons list of pushing past the target, and to do it both for the short term and the long term. And oh, guy walking past my car, I can actually show you my pros and cons list. So like this is the long term one, and it's actually ridiculous. Like this is my cons of staying at a target, and this is my pros of breaking past it. So like, I don't know, when you look at it like that, there's like really fuck all that's actually keeping me there. Also, part of it is I just can't be arsed anymore. Like, I really can't be bothered to restrict. I've got so much more freedom with food recently, and I actually love it. And the thought of losing that again is just like, oh, CBA. And then for long-term cons of pushing past the target is I won't be skinny, I won't fit small clothes, and I won't have a thigh gap. What the fuck? And like she says to me, you get so stuck in the short term immediate, like you lose sight of the bigger picture. So like now it will be difficult for me to push past the target. So like, well, I won't do it today because I don't want to feel guilty and rubbish and like it's scary to face your fear. But then if I do that every single day, in 5 years' time, I'm still going to be trapped in an eating disorder. So yeah, I guess she's trying to get me to step back and look at look at the bigger picture, I guess. Also, she tells me you don't need to love your body. And that's kind of scary in eating disorder recovery, but like, you can love the life that your body gives you. You don't need to have this perfect figure. And even sometimes like recovery role models can post pictures of themselves looking incredible, and they look healthy, but they still look incredible. And then if you're still gaining weight, you're so scared of like, oh, what if I don't look like that? Will I get to have like a tiny waist and a big bum and boobs and I don't know, muscly thighs, whatever it is you're after. But in all reality, like, if you're recovering to be a woman, you're probably going to be a woman, and like women come with like jiggly bits, and I don't love this bit, and I don't know, that's a bit squiffy, but and like maybe you don't love this bit and that bit, but like, is it worth it for the life that it will give you, and like being able to have children and be connected and have a family and just be free of these stupid thoughts about food all the time? Like, yeah. Brendan says something which is awesome. He calls it your recovery bod. And he's like, at different stages in our lives, we'll have different bods. But like right now, you're going to move into a recovery bod, which is just the bod you need for the life you want to live. And he also calls it cool bod or meg bod. Like, we are not recovering to have the same body as that girl on Instagram, even if it's healthy. Like, we're just going to recover into our own shape and size. Like, we are the shape of us. We're not the shape of whatever society thinks looks awesome. Yeah, so that really helps me. Oh, and my psychologist also pointed out, like, we only have a finite amount of energy. Someone walking past. Like, we're not superheroes. We can't do everything. Like, you cannot socialise and be awesome at your job and be present for your family and also restrict your food and control your weight. Eating disorders actually take an insane amount of energy and effort, and they're completely consuming of like your thoughts and behaviours and, I don't know, just your day. So if we're still like directing our energy that way, or like holding our body at a weight it doesn't want to be at, then that's detracting from energy that could go into like living our lives. I'm actually exhausting myself from saying all this. Like, I guess I'm trying to think at the moment, like, is it really worth it? Like, is a thigh gap really the most important thing about a person? Is it what I'm going to look back on in my life and think, oh, thank God I had a thigh gap? Is it what I'm going to tell my children about? Like, oh, mummy used to have a thigh gap. Like, definitely not. Oh, my psychologist said to me, what would you say if your sister or your daughter came up to you and said, Meg, I'm thinking about sacrificing the vast majority of my life because I'd like to have a thigh gap? And I was like, you're a fucking idiot. It's so weird. It does seem so obvious, but I don't know, there is just, well, I just have such a fear of normal. And I suppose with my other fears around food, like, I've overcome them, and I guess the way I overcame them was just to do them. Like, I think we try and wait until we feel comfortable and ready, and then we'll do it. Like, or if I knew what I'd look like, then I'll do it. We're never just going to think, oh, I'm ready to be my body's healthy weight now, like, off we go. Yeah, I do know that like exposure to food, like, it's uncomfortable at first. You still feel really guilty and scared the first few times you eat whatever fear food, but then as you like keep repeating it over time, you're just like, oh, what was the fucking fuss? That was fine. My language is so bad today. So maybe it is just doing that with weight as well. Maybe it'll be like uncomfortable at first, and then over time you'll realise, I don't know, the world didn't end and everyone hasn't deserted you, or whatever you're scared of. And probably even, to be honest, your life quality might even be better because you're not consumed with food all the time, because you're not fighting against your body to keep it down on the BMI chart, where your stupid doctors told you, oh, you'll be healthy when you get there. Idiot. I don't know, honestly, it really does annoy me that people are set actual targets. You'll be healthy when you get to BMI 19. I just think, like, this doctor doesn't know you, doesn't know your body. They tell you this, send you away, and then move on and see their next patient. And then at the end of their day, they go home to their families with their nice eating disorder free mind and carry on their life. Whereas you've left thinking, okay, BMI 19, I'll be healthy and well. And then you get there and you're not healthy and well. And then you're like, what the fuck? And then if you want to stay there, you just have to friggin' fight your body the whole time and live the rest of your life in a diet. Ugh. And I do see why a target can be helpful as a first step, like to kickstart and to give you something to aim for. But like I just wish doctors wouldn't call it a target and wouldn't use it as somewhere where you'll be healthy when you get there, and definitely not to put you on a maintenance diet when you get there, because in my mind, if you're on a maintenance diet, well, it's a restriction diet really. If you're forcing your body to maintain at a weight it doesn't want to be at, then you're restricting. And I guess it is us that need to decide ultimately. Like I said, that doctor tells you your target, you'll be healthy when you get to this weight, and off he goes. Like, it's us that need to live in our own heads and with our own behaviours for the rest of our life. And if that target's still keeping you in an eating disorder bubble, even if it's bigger than the bubble you started in, like, and it might mean going against what a doctor's saying, but like, they're carrying on with their life, like, I don't know. Right, I better go. I'm actually getting really hot sat here. And also we're having a barbecue tonight. We're getting some mates over, which would be nice. And like, honestly, my goals in recovery aren't even like the big things of like having children. Obviously that's huge, but it's also just the small things of like having a barbecue and being able to like eat and drink with your mates and not had restricted in the day, like still being able to pick up a frappuccino on your way home from work. And not be at the barbecue like, oh no, I can't have red meat, or like, don't put cheese in my burger. Is that low-fat mayonnaise? Is the Coke Diet Coke? Like, oh my God. It is my absolute dream to just walk into a barbecue and just be like, I can eat and drink anything here. Well, I hope everyone's having a lovely weekend. I'm actually going to be at a hen party this weekend, which is why I'm recording these during the week. But take care of yourselves and lots of love, and I'll record again soon.